They said women's basketball needed a spark, but nobody expected a wildfire. When the Wall Street Journal asked whether Caitlin Clark's civil rights were being shredded on national TV, the question jolted every sports desk and Senate inbox in the country. Suddenly, a 23-year-old guard wasn't just breaking records. She was standing at the center of a labor rights showdown that could drag the WNBA, the Department of Justice, and maybe even the White House into the same spotlight. This is the story of how we got here, why the fouls keep flying, and what it means when the brightest star in the game becomes the league's biggest legal liability. The meteoric rise. The Clark effect. Before the bruises, there were buckets. In college, Clark racked up more points than any woman, or man, Division I had ever seen, turning Iowa City into a pilgrimage stop for NBA scouts and TikTok highlight hunters. That avalanche of hype followed her straight into the 2024 draft, where Indiana snatched her at number 1 and Nike locked her into an 8-figure signature shoe deal before she'd even laced up a Fever jersey. Ticket prices spiked 300% overnight. By mid-season, Clark merchandise accounted for 2/3 of all WNBA online sales, and national broadcasts were pulling numbers the league hadn't sniffed since its '97 launch. But the money was only half the miracle. Ratings analysts predicted her presence alone could nudge league valuation past the billion-dollar mark within 3 years, an economic jump that makes every elbow she absorbs a bottom-line threat. Fans christened it the Clark effect. Rival owners quietly called it a lifeline. Meanwhile, coaches whispered that guarding her meant picking your poison, chase her 30-foot bombs, or eat her laser beam passes to open shooters. Either way, she was rewriting the geometry of the women's game and making a few enemies along the way. Target on her back, fouls, injuries, and a hostile court. The jealousy didn't stay in press row gossip. It crashed into Clark's ribcage, forearm, and most recently, her groin. In one brutal 6-week stretch, she suffered 4 separate knocks, the last coming July 15th when a late-game hip check left her crumpled beneath the stanchion and out of the All-Star game. League stat services now say she draws more flagrant whistles than any other player, yet insiders claim dozens of borderline hits vanish into play-on oblivion because refs have been instructed to keep games fluid for TV. Replay threads on X look less like basketball film and more like a UFC reel. A 6'9" center drives a forearm through Clark's torso. A veteran wing shoulders her into the scorer's table. Even routine hand checks are upgraded to body blows when cameras slow things down. Each clip dumps gasoline on a growing narrative that the WNBA, intentionally or not, has created a workplace so hazardous it may violate federal law. And while the league's official concussion monitoring system fired off alerts, Commissioner Cathy Engelbert responded with a bland press note praising the physicality of elite competition, then disappeared behind closed doors. The day after Clark's latest groin strain sidelined her for a 9th straight game, Commissioner Cathy Engelbert stepped to a podium in Las Vegas and insisted the league was the best women's basketball in the world and that every star gets bumped. Fans heard only what she didn't say. No promise of upgraded reviews, no emergency summit with referees, not even a timetable for a public safety plan. Off camera, Fever officials seethed. Indiana's medical staff had just ruled Clark out indefinitely. After the July 15th collision that yanked her from the All-Star lineup she topped in fan votes. Numbers told a harsher story. League tracking showed Clark drawing more flagrant contact than any other guard, despite defenders keying on her 31 minutes a night. Yet overall flagrant reviews were down 12% from 2024, according to Across the Timeline analytics that crunch every whistle. Coaches grumbled about an unwritten edict to let them play for smoother TV windows, and ESPN's mid-season investigation quoted veterans and rookies alike begging for consistency. Inside league headquarters, a leaked officiating deck, circulated after Memorial Day and later referenced by LA Times reporters, showed supervisors urging refs to avoid interrupting pace unless contact looked severe and excessive. The practical effect? Plenty of hard fouls skate by until someone rewinds the tape on social media. Clark's highlight compilations now arrive with trigger warnings: body check at 04, elbow at 15, forearm at 31. Every view multiplies outrage and undercuts Engelbert's steady-as-she-goes message. Meanwhile, Adam Silver, whose NBA shares resources with the W, kept a studied distance, telling a podcast that our women's officials are independent before pivoting to expansion talk. Fans heard a polite pass-off. Players heard echoing silence. And in that vacuum, louder voices moved in. The Wall Street Journal bombshell. The spark came from an unlikely byline. Sean McLean, a Beltway lobbyist and former Senate staffer, writing in the Wall Street Journal. His op-ed accused the WNBA of fostering a textbook hostile work environment under the Supreme Court standard set in Harris v. Forklift Systems, 1993. He pointed to Clark's bruises, viral footage, and Engelbert's shrug as evidence that league inaction could violate Title VII civil rights protections guaranteeing a non-hostile workplace. By paragraph 9, he was name-checking the Department of Labor. By paragraph 15, he urged Congress to subpoena Engelbert and union reps. The piece landed on every sports law blog within hours, and Defector flagged the most incendiary claim, that jealousy toward Clark's popularity and, yes, her race, may be influencing how refs swallow whistles. Cable panels lit up. Stephen A. Smith warned that Donald Trump's camp saw political gold in defending Clark and could make this a federal issue by Monday. Conservative senators drafted letters to the DOJ asking whether professional athletes count as employees under OSHA's safety rules. Progressive reps, wary of turning sport into proxy culture war, called for an apolitical review of referee protocols. Either way, Washington now had the WNBA on speed dial. Engelbert's office rushed out a two-sentence rebuttal promising continued collaboration with our officiating leadership. Critics scoffed. Collaboration hadn't kept Clark out of the trainer's room. Indiana Fever execs quietly contacted outside counsel, bracing for depositions if the DOJ bit. Insiders muttered that even a pre-investigation inquiry would trigger discovery requests for internal emails, which could expose exactly how many times leagues brass overruled flagrant reviews to preserve broadcast flow. And Clark? Still on the injury list, she posted a photo of practice sneakers beside an ice bucket with the caption, "Trusting the process." The comments filled with legal memes and prayer emojis. Publicly, she remained the silent star, but every day of rehab deepened the sense that her next crossover might dribble straight into a courtroom. Stephen A. Smith isn't known for understatement, so when he looked into the camera and warned that Donald Trump could make this a federal case by Monday, ears perked up far beyond SportsCenter. Within 24 hours, his rant ricocheted from ESPN to talk radio, then onto Capitol Hill, where staffers ping-ponged McLean's Wall Street Journal op-ed across party lines, highlighting its jab that Clark's treatment meets the Harris versus Forklift standard for a hostile workplace. The political math was obvious. Backing the country's newest folk hero costs nothing, earns headlines, and dovetails with broader debates over women's sports and fairness. By Wednesday, aides for at least 3 Republican senators, sources ID'd 2 as members of the Commerce Committee, were drafting talking points for a potential hearing on professional sports workplace safety. Democrats, wary of a sideshow, floated an independent review led by the National Labor Relations Board. No one agreed on jurisdiction. Everyone agreed Clark's bruises had become a bipartisan bullhorn. Cable news producers smelled ratings gold. Fox framed it as protecting a hardworking Midwesterner from woke indifference. MSNBC spun a labor rights angle. If a billion-dollar league can't shield its stars, what hope for Amazon warehouse temps? Meanwhile, C-SPAN interns clipped floor speeches where representatives cited Clark as evidence for, or against, every bill touching women's athletics. One congresswoman even tried to wedge the saga into a debate on birthright citizenship, prompting eye-roll memes that still haven't died. Engelbert found herself answering more questions from Politico than from beat writers. Asked whether congressional scrutiny might force officiating reforms, she replied, "We welcome constructive oversight, a comment critics compared to inviting firefighters after you've poured gasoline." Inside League HQ, lawyers prepped talking books on OSHA exemptions and Title VII precedent. Outside, protesters lined Fever Road arenas with placards reading, "Let her play, don't let her pay." But the frenzy wasn't just noise, it was leverage. Every headline added a decimal to Clark's market power and subtracted patience from sponsors who hate uncertainty almost as much as bad PR. Money talks, sponsors, fans, and fallout. Follow the cash, and the story sharpens. A May 2024 Sports Business Journal brief noted the Fever's decision to hire extra security once Clark arrived, an early hint that brand value and physical safety were now intertwined. A year later, the same outlet tallied 92 separate sponsorship deals tied to the franchise, up nearly 60% year-over-year, with healthcare giant Eli Lilly and fintech Gainbridge fronting the jersey patchel. When your face of the league limps to the locker room, that's not just a medical update, it's a line item on a quarterly earnings call. League-wide, the numbers popped. Average attendance jumped from 6,600 in 2023 to nearly 10,000 in 2024, while national broadcasts posted a 24-year high of 657K viewers. Forbes now pegs overall WNBA valuation north of $1 billion, crediting the Caitlin Clark effect for a quarter of league revenue. One New York Post headline put it plainer: "She could be worth $1 billion if the W doesn't break her first." Behind closed doors, marketing execs began asking awkward questions. Nike had already plastered a 6-story Clark mural on Indianapolis's JW Marriott for All-Star Week, but insiders told SBJ the swoosh quietly sought written assurance that its $28 million investment wouldn't spend half the season in street clothes. Smaller partners lacked Nike's leverage. At least one mid-tier beverage brand paused activation plans until officiating guidance is clarified, according to a draft vendor memo obtained by reporters. The document never reached public view, but its existence leaked into Slack channels faster than a viral crossover. Players noticed. Aya Wilson, fresh off her own signature shoe launch, told reporters she wants competitive fire, not crash cart trauma. Others grumbled that Clark's spotlight distorts discipline, too soft for vets, too rough for rookies, but no one denied the economic lift she delivers. As one agent cracked, "My client's bonus check says thanks, her ribs say chill." Fans, too, walk the revenue risk tightrope. Fever crowds average 17K, surpassing even the NBA's Pacers on some nights. Yet social media sentiment sours each time a viral foul clip drops. TikTok compilations labeled "assaults that somehow weren't fouls" hit 10 million views in days, sparking boycotts of rival teams' merch and petitions demanding automatic flagrant reviews for any hit on a Tier A star. The W lures eyeballs. The optics could scare them away just as quickly. Inside boardrooms, risk assessment models now include Clark injury contingency. One slide, leaked from a Fortune 500 footwear pitch, projects a 21% viewership dip if she misses the postseason, wiping out $72 million in projected ad spots. Another estimates franchise values could stall league expansion timelines, delaying entry fees from Golden State, Portland, and Toronto. Sponsors don't wait for referees to find whistle discipline. They move budgets to safer bets. Which leaves the WNBA staring at a simple equation: protect the star and ride the boom, or punt and pray the bruises don't bruise the bottom line. And the window to choose is shrinking because hearings, audits, and angry CFOs don't run on the league's schedule. They run on momentum. Policing the paint, or the courtroom. A storm is brewing on two fronts, and neither wears a jersey. On one side sit the lawyers, sharpening Title VII arguments that the WNBA knew or should have known. Its laissez-faire whistle turned every game into a workplace hazard. Employment law specialists note that professional athletes are employees under federal law. If repeated elbows would be illegal inside an office cubicle, they're no less illegal on hardwood. Two firms have already contacted the Clark camp, according to Front Office Sports, offering contingency representation should she decide to file. Civil action isn't the only hammer. Capitol Hill aides confirmed draft subpoenas for league emails surrounding officiating directives. Committees can compel disclosure even without a full hearing. Staffers hint that Engelbert and Union President Nneka Agwamike could be asked to testify on player safety protocols as soon as September. Congressional investigations move slowly until cameras switch on, then momentum snowballs. The NBA learned that lesson during its 2007 referee gambling scandal. The W might learn it midseason. Sensing the cliff, league ops chiefs floated an extraordinary fix, an automatic flagrant review trigger for any above-the-shoulders or launch impact contact on shooters, starting August 1st. Reporters spotted the language buried in a July 22nd rule clarification memo citing Section 2C of the 2025 rulebook, the same clause already demanding review for severe and excessive hits. The tweak would merely remove referee discretion on severity, forcing the replay center to look at every high hit. Purists howl that star-centric rules cheapen competition, but Clark's former Iowa coach Lisa Bludden counters that calling existing fouls is not favoritism, it's safety. Players are split. Vets recall the 2018 Harden rip-through crackdown that slowed games to a crawl. Rookies say they'll take whistles over whiplash. Yet consensus has formed on one point. Officiating is now the league's #1 headline, replacing expansion chatter and new CBA angst. Even ESPN's mid-July All-Star preview, usually a feel-good montage, opened with a segment titled, "Can the WNBA fix its foul problem?" What will the box score say? So where does this leave Caitlin Clark and the league that both needs and endangers her? 3 scenarios loom. Swift reform. The automatic review rule sticks, fouls drop, and Clark finishes the season more bruised legend than legal plaintiff. Ratings soar, expansion fees roll in, and the hostile court headline fades into archive tabs. Legal showdown. Congress subpoenas, Discovery drops damning emails, and Clark or her union files suit. Brands recoil, viewers grimace, and every hard foul becomes Exhibit A on nightly news. Exodus of trust. If neither whistles nor court solve it, the silent verdict comes from wallets and would-be stars who decide pro ball shouldn't require body armor. The league's billion-dollar boom deflates before the next TV contract even hits the printer. Meanwhile, corporate calculators hum louder than the shot clock. Sports marketing analysts project a $72 million swing in national ad slots if Clark misses the postseason, enough to stall franchise expansion bids from Golden State and Toronto. Sponsors privately threaten activation pauses unless the league formalizes the review change by Labor Day. And Nike's record-setting 30-story mural on Indianapolis's JW Marriott, installed for All-Star Week, now doubles as a sky-high reminder that letting your icon become a crash dummy is bad for brand safety. The W's choice is stark. Police the paint with whistles or watch a judge police it with subpoenas. One path eats a few seconds of broadcast time. The other devours legal budgets and public goodwill. Clark herself hasn't tipped her hand. Each social media post, ice bucket, rehab band, quiet thumbs up, lets fans write their own endings. Will she be remembered as the spark that torched outdated toughness myths, or as the symbol of how a league fumbled its once-in-a-generation moment? That final box score line hasn't been printed yet. But the clock is ticking, possessions are dwindling, and everyone, from refs to CEOs to senators, is now on the court whether they like it or not. The question that opened this story still echoes. Is Caitlin Clark a victim, a catalyst, or both? Whatever the answer, one truth is already settled. Basketball will never look the same again.